Every time I found myself throwing away things that I was used to having around, I had to keep asking myself, is this more important to you than your future life with Joel? What is more important to you?
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Jeanne Nelson is with me for a third segment talking about love and relationships after 50, particularly starting over again after the loss of a spouse. Jeanne, thanks again for joining me.
You're welcome, Silke.
Yeah. Well, on our first segment, of course, we heard your story. As a marriage and family therapist, you have your own professional view on how to counsel people when they go through, the loss of a loved one. And then you lost your husband of 27 years. So, you went through this on a very personal level that I know gives a whole new perspective to this, which I know.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, we talked about your story. We talked about dating again, and you went online. You went through that process and then met your husband, Joel, who of course I know. And
Yes.
Tell us about that, because once you do find someone and you do decide to proceed to a relationship, that presents a whole other set of challenges that are much different than starting over again after divorce. Let's talk about that.
There is the making room for someone new challenge, making room emotionally and even making room physically when you decide to blend your lives, blend your households, and how you go about that process. For Joel, it was pretty simple. He had left the family home. They had sold everything. He was starting fresh, very open to whatever needed to be done. For me, it was pretty complicated. He moved into my home, which was already full of my whole life with my late husband, the pictures, the mementos, the artwork, memories, and making room and deciding how to make it a house that we shared together that looked like the two of us was really an ongoing process that took, it was a period of years that made that happen. But the first part, the initial part, I do think it's really important that people take a good look at what's that going to be. If you can do this at all, if you need to start in a new household, fresh, with new things, new people, or if you're able to move into somebody else's home. And my anti-model of what I didn't want to happen, I have a girlfriend who's moved in with her later husband, who was a widower. And they talked about the process and they discussed it for a period of months. And she came over with all of her boxes, and she and her brother-in-law were carrying all this stuff upstairs, and he was getting more and more agitated. And it turned out that in order to make room for her in his new house, he had cleaned out 2 drawers. And that was it, 2 drawers. And it just didn't occur to him. He was so used to just, this was his stuff. And there was some of his late wife stuff, too, that was still in the closets. And he very quickly became clear that wasn't going to work. But I didn't want that to happen when Joel moved in. So we went through the house, room by room, section by section. I need this much closet space here. I want this many drawers here. This much shelf space. Each room, what I needed to do. So I felt, on the one hand, very excited about this new process, very intimidated about what I had to get rid of. Every time I found myself throwing away things that I was used to having around and looking at, giving them away, throwing them away, donating, whatever I did with them, I had to keep asking myself, is this more important to you than your future life with Joel? What is more important to you? Because if hanging on to your book collection or your photo collection or whatever it may be, or boxing these things up, and then there was also the feeling of real guilt and disloyalty. as I put away my late husband's things, cleaned out his desk, took down some of the pictures, decided which of the pictures could stay, which of the pictures should not. That was, you know, I had a family wall full of pictures. And when looking at them, I thought, okay, there's a lot of Lee's family here that are never even going to see this wall. And where are Joel's pictures and his family? And that was my big project for when he first moved in. He moved in the fall. We had a family Thanksgiving, and I really wanted photos of him and his family on the wall so they saw he belonged there and he felt he belonged there. And I was able to get those up in time for Thanksgiving. I felt good about that.
Yeah, that would be very, very difficult. Very difficult. I shared with you off camera, a story of one of my friends and the big portrait that hung.
Yeah.
I don't know how you have those, discussions. That's why I'm so glad that we have you here who went through it. What was the hardest part? Reconciling the guilt? Like how do you, since you've gone through it, was your treatment when you counsel people on it? Did you change?
I think I was more sensitive to how some things that might sound kind of small, even trivial to other people, can be awfully meaningful to you. Just finding an old pair of my husband's shoes in the backyard behind a potted plant that he used for gardening, and okay, we're redoing the yard now. Those have to be thrown away, and taking them out to the trash can. That hurt, and yet that was necessary. So, okay, that needs to be done. We went through our house section by section, remodeling, turning it completely into a new place. I had loved the things that I'd originally done with the house, and they just needed to be changed. So it became the house that I shared with Joel. I have a lot more respect for how difficult that can be for people, and how much I really admire and respect people, the new spouse, when they can be patient and kind and mature about that. But, even that has limits. There was this time when Joel and I got some portraits done on a cruise that turned out our luggage was stolen, so we lost the portraits. And when we got home, Joel said one of the things he was disappointed about was on my desk, under some plastic that I had on the top of the desk that was protecting it, I had a portrait of my late husband and I. There was Lee and I that I just kept on the desk. I just liked seeing it there. And he said, I just noticed you always had that there. And I thought if we got those portraits done, you would replace that with a portrait of us. And I thought, that would never have occurred to me if he had not told me that. I was stunned. I had no idea. I was in denial. I had no idea he even noticed. How could he not notice? I had no idea he even noticed that it bothered him, that it was appropriate to make that change. I was so glad he finally told me, and I had to think about it. Okay, yeah, all right, it's time. It's time. I have pictures of Lee I can look at anytime. They don't have to be right there on the desk. I did take out that picture and replaced it of one with him.
Yeah, that would be. Well, I mean, I know Joel. He's a very reasonable, very wonderful, loving person. What is there a time? Can somebody just be too demanding? And how would you counsel somebody like Joel on the outside? To be okay with this process, or how to deal with it?
I think a lot of it is about being able to share the feelings you have, make them feelings rather than demands. I think that's so important. Just say, every time I look at this, I do feel sort of left out here, or, I wish, I could be center stage in that place, rather than you're going to have to get rid of those pictures, or, I don't know why you still keep that. I think there's got to be an acknowledgement, an understanding of why this would be important to your mate, but also a reminder that the person you're with is the person you're with, and they have to get your loyalty and respect.
No, it's, yeah, again, I can't even imagine what that's like. And I've really enjoyed doing these segments. I've learned a lot. It's you know, I think it's one thing I like best about Second Act is that we do have these interesting conversations. And you know, one of the reasons, like I said, we had you back because was all the comments we received on previous segments that we've done on this topic. So I want to encourage our viewers to leave your questions and comments. I'll make sure that Jeanne receives them, that we answer questions as best as we can. And if there are more suggestions for other topics or maybe other takes on this topic, I should say, please leave that. And we'll see what we can do. Jeanne, is there anything else that you would like to say on this topic that I may not have asked you about?
Well, I think this is an individual journey for each person. It's going to be something that you decide what you're ready for and how to get ready. But I think the important thing is to remember that you can honor and love the memory of your late spouse while still giving your full, total love and loyalty and respect to the person you're with, to remember that that person deserves to be number one, as everybody wants to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and one of the things that I read is that, you know, grief and love can coexist. And, you know, again, it's not a competition. It's just, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. And I hope that we've answered, you know, some of the questions, you know, again, both from a professional and more importantly so a personal perspective, because I think that's where people really empathize. So I thank you again. Let's see what kind of questions we get, and you know, maybe have you back sooner rather than later. Jeanne, thanks so much.
Thank you, Silke. Good talking to you.
Bye. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube. When you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. We'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.